WPCD has entered the studio. That's right, Station Director Dean Geiken has taken the chair. So fire up the warp drive, set your phasers to stun. It's time to go Geekin with Geiken.
Good morning. How's it going?
We're doing great.
Yeah,
we are going to go very deep geek today on Geekin with Geiken. And I say that because we have some guests in the studio, Shane McFly and Squiddy, who are sitting at the microphones 3 and 4, and they are going to be talking about hacker culture. Welcome, everyone.
Good morning.
Now, when everybody hears the word hacker, we oftentimes think of, the evil computer hacker trying to break into the bank and steal millions and millions and millions of dollars. But that's not what you guys are here to talk about, correct?
That's right. Yeah, we kind of hate that connotation that's sort of been portrayed in the media and in movies and all this. This was not the initial intended use of the term. The word hacker kind of arose back from a model train club.
I have that information.
MIT, at MIT.
In 1946, Model Tech Railroad Club, its members, they shared a passion to find out how things work and then to master them, and they were apparently among the first quote-unquote hackers, right? And you had sent me some information saying it's a subculture of individuals who enjoy the intellectual challenge of creatively overcoming limitations of software systems to achieve novel and clever outcomes. Is it always about software systems, or is it?
Oh, definitely not. Right, and we go back to the Model Railroad Club. Right? Mm-hmm. These guys were playing with model railroads, and and then for some reason, it seems sort of random to us, is they also like to play with telephones, right, and phone connecting systems and the switches.
Yeah,
and things,
like phone hacking, like phreaking.
Right.
Phreaking.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've heard that word before, and I was like, what the heck is a phreaker or phreaking? But it is hackers who do phone hacking. So what do you guys hack? What is your thing to hack? I mean, now Shane, you are in security.
That's right. Yeah, I work as a research system administrator. So So we have the term black hat hacker, and that's what you were referring to earlier. These bad guys are trying to break into banks and steal all the monies, right? And you know, your base belongs to us, right? Right. But like what I'm studying is methods to prevent them from doing that, and it's a really hard job because we have to protect all the things all the time,
right?
And they only need to break one thing one time.
They've always said that it's harder to be a good guy than it is a bad guy,
right?
Because a bad guy just has, I just got to do bad stuff.
Yes,
but the good guy has to learn how to be a bad guy to prevent the bad guy from doing that.
But I think that's part of the hacker culture too. Is like we don't get into this because we want to do things that are easy. Right.
Okay.
For us, the fun is the challenge.
It's the challenge, yeah, exactly.
So, Squiddy, what? And you're going to have to explain what Squiddy means here in a bit.
Okay.
What is your role in the hacker culture?
Well, my role in the hacker culture focuses more on open source intelligence.
Okay. Now you're going to have to explain that for our.
So, if you've ever heard the term, doxing or intel gathering, what doxing really is, it's compiling, a dox on individuals, compiling. Their name, their address, their different online aliases.
Documents.
Yeah,
right,
documents.
Okay.
Yeah.
So doxing is basically creating documents.
It's not exactly the act of publishing information, because that's more malicious, but just like collecting it. So that's always really interested me. And then I was really interested in amateur radio, so I'm working on getting my license for that right now, so that I can.
A license to become an amateur radio
operator.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we were talking before the show that you're hoping to get into the world of finding out who has these illegal radios.
Fox hunting, yeah.
Fox hunting.
Yeah.
Now explain that just a little bit.
Well, fox hunting is when you find radios that are on frequencies that they shouldn't be on. They're also not registered. These people are pretty much not supposed to have these radios, and they can use them for a lot of illicit activities. So fox hunting really focuses on finding those people.
Okay.
So like if you were, say someone... Could you do that to the 88.7 radio signal? Like, could there be someone else who takes over that radio wave, or is it more?
Well, I think that you would not have much luck if you tried to do that in town limits. Right. But if we drove up to like Gibson, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, like, if you would start hearing it through your car radio,
right? Yes,
yeah.
Like
and that can happen.
Yeah.
Now, what would somebody? Again, these are probably hackers doing this on a radio station signal. what would they be using that signal for? I mean, I know that in some places they have low-power FM radios that are used for specialty events and things like that. But you're talking something more nefarious, right?
Yeah, well, people get on the radio for a lot of different reasons. It could be local gangs. It could be, informants for the local gangs. Like, they could be listening in to a police scanner and informing these people. And they can just be transmitting information that they're not supposed to be transmitting in general.
Interesting.
Well, they could just be vandals.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
How do
Just
you
so
go
they
about
can.
tracking them down?
Well, you have to listen in on different frequencies.
see,
So they have those competitions are usually held at DEF CON. And so once you learn about it, you can kind of go there and they'll set up different radios for you to track down.
Now, Shane, describe what a hacker. I mean, you've got a regular full-time job where you're, trying to prevent people from hacking, but in your part-time or your leisure time, you're a hacker. What are you doing as a hacker?
Well, I wouldn't say I try to prevent people from hacking, right? 'Cause
Okay.
some of the stuff we do at work, I would call hacking, at least until we derive a more professional method of achieving our results. Right?
Okay.
For me, like the term hacker is sort of synonymous with tinker.
Okay.
Right? It means to mess around with stuff, to play around with it. Like just, there's a quote, I can't remember right now who it is, but they said, you could tell a hacker because if you give them a new toy, the first thing they do is take it apart to see how it works, right? And that's kind of what the culture is, right?
Okay.
And so, without pontificating too much or climbing up on a soapbox,
You're fine.
all right, computer security is comprised of what we call the CIA triad, right? Which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? And so everybody thinks it's real sexy to talk about, the confidentiality. This is top secret. This is sensitive data, and that's very important. Integrity, right? Like I'm offering up, I can go download an operating system from a website, right? But somebody might have come along and impersonated that website and have a very similar looking downloadable file that's almost the same but not quite the same, right? So that's the integrity of the data has been compromised,
Okay.
right? But a lot of the jobs in the field really focus on availability, right? Because if you're talking about the CIO of a company, the CEO, like they want to know, is the server up? Is it working? Is it doing the thing it's supposed to be doing? Is WPCD Parkland.edu on and streaming on listen.html?
Right.
There's a free plug for you.
All right. Well, thank you. Yes. We have a new stream, too. You can go on and chat with us and all kinds of stuff. But, okay, so as part of the hacker culture, when you get together, I know you have an organization, and feel free to talk about your organization. What is it you do when you get together, when you're not behind a desk getting paid?
Okay. So there's a few different groups that I'm associated with. We have, I'll talk about CuteSec first, CUTESEC, and that stands for Champaign-Urbana Technology Enthusiast something, etc.
Yeah, it was
committee. Right?
It also came from the cute corn that you
Right,
had up
yes.
there.
Yeah, it was
logo.
an easy to remember, easy to spell, right? CuteSec.org,
Right.
and that'll link you to our other groups, which comprised of DC 217, and what that is a DEF CON group, and Jay mentioned DEF CON.
Yeah, and that's really the first convention was held for DEF CON in 1993. But there are also, and that was like in Las Vegas, but there are also like local DEF CON hacking groups for people that are interested in that sort of thing. And so that's what I interact with mostly. And that has a few students from the U of I, but it's also a lot of people that work in the field. Like Shane is also in that group. And there are like different presentations they give. So one was done by Klatsko from U of I, and he did one on doxing, and other people do one on, building Raspberry Pis. Some of it's a lot of basic intro stuff, but some of it also focuses largely on security.
Right, and DEF CON culture, a lot of times you'll see lockpicking.
Yeah. So
Not really sure why.
Yeah.
But
Really?
that's a big thing, right? And that was the thing we did at their first meeting. We
First
all sat
meeting,
around
yeah.
the table with lock picks and these little locks.
And I loved
we
it, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Is it as difficult as it's said to be?
Well, depending on the lock. So you have like 4-pin locks and you have 6-pin locks and there are security pins. So it depends on the level of lock.
Okay.
The 4-pin locks aren't really easy to pick. I mean, they're not really hard to pick. They're really easy to pick.
Gotcha.
Right. And then there's the ones, you're familiar with a key that's kind of a circle with like a little knob on one
Yes.
side, right? That's very popular probably for
Yeah.
boards and things like that. We had one of those, and it took me an hour because
Yeah.
I had to unlock it 7 times because there were 7 different spots in it. And like once I
Yeah.
did the first one, I couldn't stick the key in anymore because that little notch that sticks off the front. And
Yeah.
so I sat there for the whole presentation, picking this thing over and over again.
So, okay, so hacking is, as it said, kind of taking things apart and maybe figuring out how they work or maybe how to make them work a little bit better and things like that. We talked off air about there's hacking in all different sorts of society. The gamers can hack stuff in terms of their electronic equipment, or even they can hack it on a pen and paper board game and stuff like that. What do you guys hack when you're getting together? You talked about the locks and stuff like that, but do you guys, when you have your meetings, do you say, hey, we've got this, I don't know even what to say. I mean, you've got this problem, you've got this machine, you've got this idea. What is it that you do when you're getting into the hacking?
Well, we build things. So at the last 2600 meeting, and if I can just a second on the 2600, this is a similar group to DEF CON, but it's a little bit more, I'd say, project-oriented, more open, right? And there's less of the kind of black hat hacker associated image that DEF CON might have. And 2600, interestingly enough, comes from 26 hertz, right? Which was the frequency that could be used to hack some of these public payphones, right?
Yeah.
And it was found out that Captain Crunch had included as a free prize in one of their boxes of toys, and this was, decades ago, a whistle that the pitch of the whistle was 2600.
So
right?
so
you could use this whistle that you got in your box of Captain Crunch.
And unlock a payphone.
Right, yeah.
I think it was, I don't know, like a 7-year-old that really realized that those whistles could disrupt certain phone signals.
Interesting. All right, I tell you what, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back. We'll talk more about the hack culture and also give you a chance to talk about your organization, where people might want to, who are interested in this type of thing. Because actually, I'm starting to get interested in this because I was kind of one of those kids that I got a new toy, and that was the thing I did. My parents were frustrated at me.
Yeah.
Like, it's broken now.
Right.
So,
We'd love to take away the bad idea that is, the negative connotation of the word hacker. And
okay, you want that word back.
Yes, I want it
Yeah.
back.
You want it back.
Yes.
All right, well, let's take a short
We'll
break,
bring it
Scott.
back right after. And we're back.
We are back with Shane and Squiddy. Real quick, Squiddy,
Yes.
how did you get that moniker?
Okay, I got that moniker from the group logo, which is, you obviously can't see it, but it's
'Cause it is
corn with
radio.
eyes. Yeah.
She's wearing a T-shirt, and it's an ear of corn with eyes, and it's got binary numbers on it in terms instead of kernels.
Yeah, so we were talking about what the logo should be called, and people came up with the name. I think it might have been you, Shane, of Squiddy. And
Because if she shows you the sheath or whatever you call it, the husk is kind of tentacly.
yeah, it kind of looks like a squid.
okay.
And so we were voting on should it be called Squiddy, and McFly here said, well, I think your name should be called Squiddy, so I said fine.
Okay.
And so that's how I got the name.
All right, it worked.
That's
it
usually
worked.
how it goes, right?
Yeah. Now, Shane, talk a little bit about the organization that you guys belong to. And
Okay,
for
so-
information for people who are interested in this
Right,
stuff.
so I was talking about this a little earlier. CuteSec is sort of the council or the committee, like it's a way of allowing for these different groups to communicate with each other. And these groups are all independent of one another, right? Although they have a lot of the same membership, but whatever happens in DC 217, they have no say over what happens in CU 2600, right? But so those are the two kind of main groups. I also have another group called Open NSM, but that's on hiatus right now, and that was more students and professionals talking about network security monitoring, right, and all the different tools. And that was very cool because we had some very big names in the field come in and plug our group and show us, hey, you guys all use this network monitoring tool, and I found out this really cool way to make this, I mean, without going into detail,
Right.
I made this awesome thing happen. Look,
Right.
and like, oh, I never even thought to do it like that.
he hacked
You know?
it and made it different or
Exactly
better.
right.
Yeah.
And it's not like making it do something it's not supposed to. It's
Right.
just like, hey, nobody ever thought to use this function in this way in this context, and I did. And wow, look at this cool turn. Look at the way this thing turned out.
Interesting.
But so DC 217, Jay talked a little bit about the kind of stuff we do there. We give little mini talks, and then we
Yeah,
like to
we
try
have
to
like
do
a
breakouts
presentation.
where we can work on something.
So how does somebody get a hold of you?
Right, so they can go to cutesec.org, and that will take them to either one of the other.
That's designed by me, by the way.
Wait.
It's still being worked on.
Okay.
So DC 217 meets the second Saturday, or no, the third Saturday. So let's start. Let me roll back. CU 2600 is a 2600 group, and by nature, these exist across the country, and they always are held on the first Friday of the month, right? So DC 217 is 2 weeks from the day after that, right? So that's a little confusing. But
yeah, you should definitely check out the website.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Well, because that can shift, right?
Yes.
You know, the 2 weeks after the first Friday can be even the second or the third, I think. Saturday.
Sounds like people trying to plan when Easter is going to fall.
Exactly. Yeah. So
maybe we need to hack our calendars a little bit and make them work better.
CU 2600, we meet in the Lincoln Square Mall in the food court.
Okay.
And we bring a projector and a screen and all this, and we little talks, and then we all talk about. We were just having someone said, "Hey, I've got some equipment I can donate," and we're like talking about some cool ways that we can tie together a bunch of these little tiny mini computers to create sort of like a machine learning device or like artificial intelligence, kind of like a baby supercomputer.
Interesting.
Right?
Wow.
And then DC 217, which is held in the basement of Urbana Library, almost always. I think that this month we might be moving
it's not being held this month. They gave our slot to somebody else this month.
Yes, butterflies or something.
Yeah.
Right?
We don't know who they are.
So we're going to be in the makerspace, which is another cool bunch of groups of people, right?
Right, yes.
And we're trying to kind of bring them on board into the CuteSec to like just kind of plug them and foster communication. There's a group called PyCu that works on Python programming. And that's in the basement of the building that houses the Urbana post office, which is right next to Lincoln Square. So there's some cool stuff down there, and I think that's where our meeting will be.
And if anybody does, or they're not quite, able to pick up on all this, they can always contact me at the radio station, and we will always give you, relay that information.
And the trail of breadcrumbs starts at cutesec.org.
Yeah, we have our contact up there. You can contact me at deus@8chan.co, so DEUS.
Okay. All right. So anything else you want to talk about that needs to be known about the hacker culture before we go into something a little less?
Well, I think we should talk a little bit more about the groups because, we don't want to give the impression that it's not an open group. It's open to a lot of beginners. Like, I'm the newbie face of the group.
Okay.
And when I joined it, I didn't honestly know a whole lot about hacker culture, but these guys have been really open, so.
That's good. Very inviting and very welcoming to anybody, any level of
I think there's
expertise.
A history in the hacker community of being sort of elitist, right? And
we make distinctions between people who, like in like black hat culture, you make distinctions between people who are actual black hats and people who are called like script kiddies or skids who can't program but they use somebody else's tools. And we try not to do that in the group.
Right. I mean, we all start as script kiddies, right?
Yeah, all of us do.
Until we start writing our own tools, most of us, and everybody comes from somewhere, and nobody knows everything, right? So
Scott, I just got a great idea for another show, Geek Speak, where we could have them and a bunch of other people just submit a bunch of different words with the definition. And see.
Yeah.
Compile a lexicon.
Yes, a lexicon of stuff.
So I have a quick question. So I think one of the main things that's made the word hacking have like a negative connotation, I would say it has to do with the movies. When I watch movies growing up, you see hackers and they're breaking into stuff and like that. Can you give an example of a movie that just did it so wrong that you're watching and you're like cringing?
How about a TV show, right?
Okay.
You can find this on YouTube, right?
Right.
2 Idiots, 1 Keyboard, NCIS. Right. Oh my gosh, we're getting hacked, and almost exclusively when you're getting hacked, it means a bunch of windows are popping open on your desktop, right? And that's stupid, right? Because a really good hack, they're not going to show any evidence,
You
right?
would never know it.
Yeah. So, but meanwhile, to try to prevent this, they start both typing on the same keyboard at the same time, which I don't even know.
That's not even possible. Right? I don't think that's possible.
And if they get something that simple wrong, imagine like how badly they portray the rest of it, which they really do. It's like, I need to break this encryption, and how I'm going to do that is by typing faster.
Yes.
But there
From
are
what I've learned is you have to just type as fast as possible and match the keyboard, and it seems like that works, right?
There are a few kind of accurate representations. Like the show Mr. Robot's pretty good. They have, I forget who the lead guy that plays Elliot is, but they have some good examples on things like steganography and just a lot of the stuff that he uses is
Right.
it's pretty accurate.
Well, if Hollywood was accurate all the time, we probably wouldn't be watching as much stuff from
It's
them.
not as exciting, right?
Exactly.
It's clickbait, right?
Yeah.
It's clickbait.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Another bad one was, I forget the name of the
Hackers.
show. Well,
Just the
Hackers
movie?
we love Hackers the movie, but it's horrible
Really? Yeah.
representation.
You love it because of what it isn't.
Yes, it's just real campy and ridiculous. One that's actually kind of decent is called Sneakers, which is from
That was
the
excellent.
early 90s.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's
yeah,
quite a
that's
few years
Robert
ago.
Redford, Sidney Poitier. It's like an all-star cast, and I think it does a pretty good job, of representing what it would actually take to break into a bank
Right.
and get some money and some other things throughout it. I mean, they're kind of hand-wavy with the math parts, but
My
Yeah.
guess is that they've probably talked to people like you and figured out that, that doesn't translate well.
and that's
to-
what Mr. Robot did too, right?
Yeah, they had I think Michael Basil working on that as well, and he actually does a lot of the open source intelligence. That he recently published a book that I got, and I just skimmed through it, and it's pretty good. I think everyone should get it.
All right. Well, I think we're out of time, especially since Scott has to go to class.
Oh, unfortunately.
Yes, well, that's what you're here at the Parkland for, right?
Unfortunately.
So I want to thank both Shane and Squiddy for coming in and talking about the hacker culture, something that I really only knew, and I've got my fingers about less than half an inch away from each other. I knew about that much about it. I think it's really awesome. And I may want to have you guys come back
Yeah,
in
thanks for
again.
having us. This was a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
this was excellent.
And thank you for reaching out and presenting this opportunity to me because
I was
didn't-
listening a couple weeks ago, and you were having the electronic video games guys on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so and I want to thank you for coming in and suggesting it.
Yes,
so.
definitely. That was extremely interesting. It just seems like you could talk
Sports.
about that forever. There's just
Yeah.
different layers and layers and layers.
So, all right.
right.
Well, thank you very much for joining us here on Geekin with Geiken.
And what do we say, right?
As always, live long and prosper.